call me crazy, but I feel like roster moves are coming to Vitality. All the top 5 teams are struggling at the first tournament this season. That's something we see often after a major. Everyone has a break, all the players take a break, and then the players are just not in form, and the big teams are always a bit of struggling and trying to get in form. But I think this break is different because they're still shit, but I think it's because of a certain reason, and I'm gonna explain that in this video. There's one team that skipped this first tournament, and that's NAVI. I haven't read why they skipped this tournament, because everyone is participating except them and some other teams, but those other teams performed at China tournaments, so that's understandable that they take a longer break. But NAVI had a kind of longer break because they didn't even reach the playoffs at Cologne, so they had an early break. Some fans are speculating they will make a roster move still, but I don't really believe in those rumors because they still performed decently. They just didn't perform good at the major. But right before the major, they performed well at all tournaments they participated in. It became first, second, or at least playoffs. So we saw a NAVI that performed way better than last year, and they just had a flaw at Cologne. So I'm not thinking they should change the roster already. Maybe they are negotiating some contracts and they still want to stick to this roster for the next tournaments, and if it still doesn't work out, they can make a change. But I think it's way too early to already make a change after one tournament flaw, and it is one where you should make the playoffs as NAVI, but at least it's confirmed they will be at the Esports World Cup, so we will see there how they will perform. It looks like there's no change happening yet. Maybe there still will be next week, but I don't think so, and I don't hope so, because otherwise it's just like one tournament flaw, we make a change, then another tournament fail, another change, and I hope they will still try with this roster, especially when everyone's struggling right now. The first team that went out of Blast Bounty, the first big team, was Falcons. The major winners couldn't get a grip on 100 Thieves at this match. At the start it looked like it would be a dominant match by Falcons. They won the map 13-4, and at the second map it already became a little bit closer, and eventually 100 Thieves won with 13-7. But at the last map Falcons had a big lead and it looked like they will win this map easily. But then 100 Thieves made a comeback and an insane clutch to win the match. When I watched this match I felt like it was Falcons back at it again. They were just struggling at the end, and especially the last map, I was like, this is so typical Falcons. You saw that lead and every Falcons fan in their mind has that thought, they're not gonna choke this, right? But then you remember it's Falcons and they probably will. I still had that feeling at the major, but they proved me wrong, and every time they got a lead they made sure to finish it. But with this match it just didn't feel like it, and it showed. And it just feels like it's just Falcons like from 1 year ago where they just can't finish a map. Normally if you look at the stats, I would say this is a one-off. Like every season at the start the big teams are struggling and they're now the biggest team. But when you looked at their reactions after the loss and also during the game, it just felt like they were mad all the time. They were like tilting all the time, and that's also kind of typical for Falcons. At the major it felt less of that, and maybe that's because Kerrigan had a grip on them, and now after the break he doesn't have a grip on them. I don't know. Nico was tilting a lot of the times, and if you look at the stats, he performed the worst. I don't know if something happened in his private life that affected this game. I don't know if just something happened in his mind that he feels like he just won it all and has a mentality change. I don't know. And I think Kerrigan will get a grip on the whole team again, and they will perform at least somewhat decent at the next tournaments. But I think for Falcons there's a lot of lessons to learn from this one match, because you could just say it's just one match off and they can recover from this easily at the next tournament. But if you don't focus on that mentality change that they had, then I think it will just go like this for the rest of the season. But Kerrigan is a very big mastermind, so I believe he can still get a grip on them. But with this start they still have a long way to go for the next major, and even if they want to win this, because it doesn't feel like the same Falcons we saw like 1 month ago. Also, we should give credits to 100 Thieves because they performed really well, so it's also not just only a Falcons fuck up, but also a big improvement for 100 Thieves, so it gives me, and they look promising, so maybe we will see more of them this season. Then we have Spirit, and Spirit won their first match against OG, but that wasn't won that easily. Just like Falcons, they beat them 13-4 in the first map, and the second map they lost, and then in the third map it went to overtime. Even though it was a close match, I did feel like it was not that close because of the performance gap. Because Dunk found his form again after the major, where he did not always find his form in every match. But yeah, Dunk performed, Shearer performed, Tanir performed. The only one who didn't really perform of Spirit was Magix, which is understandable because he's the IGL. And if you compare the stats to OG, it looks like indeed it was like a one-sided match. But I think they just lost a lot of like rounds where it was like 50-50 who will win this outcome, and the scoreline maybe deceives a bit in what actually happened in the match. Still, OG performed pretty good, and Cadian also performed pretty good himself. It was 50-50, but I wouldn't say that really. I felt like Spirit would have won this easily, and they just missed out on a lot of rounds, a lot of like 50-50 rounds, and that's what they should focus on for the next tournament. But from all the top 5 teams, they were the only one to make it to round 2, so that's already a win in itself. Also, with their like internal struggles with Heli as coach, because he's not attending that much tournaments because of his health. I heard now that he is coaching at this tournament online. I don't know if he will be in the arena, but I heard he's doing well again, so that's nice to hear. We saw in their second game that they indeed are still good, and that the first game was just a bit of a flaw maybe. Second game was against 100 Thieves, and they lost a map, but they also 13-0'd them, and Dong performs amazing at Dust 2. And that makes them the only top 10 team to qualify for the playoffs of Blast Bounty. We will see if they keep on this good form, and we will see if they maybe win this tournament. Then we have Vitality, who lost against Liquid. They couldn't even win a map. But how I'm finding like all these conclusions from just these matches, I feel like with Vitality there's a lot of factual logic behind the reasoning why I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. If we first look at the stats, the new players of Liquid also performed pretty well, and they look like a good team that can put up a fight. And Vitality already struggled at the major. We saw them lose to smaller teams, big teams. They struggled a bit. We saw that they didn't have the same form like in the previous majors. And at this match, the only players who had a 1.0 or higher were Flames and Zaiwu. Call me crazy, but I feel like roster moves are coming to Vitality. After their time in North America, where they were like, we're not really trying at this point, and then they started losing. I feel like that was like an experiment of like, what if we just try to have fun instead of try harding all the time, and now it shows they will lose. Also in the personal lives there are some changes happening, because Apex announced he will become a father, and Messi announced he will also become a father for the second time. So I think they have other things on their mind, especially with an online tournament where they're just at home. I'm curious if maybe they're like stressed at home or have troubles at home with the pregnancies they got. They want to take time off and spend time with the family. That's very understandable. It looks like it. It looks like they are not performing the same, and they might make some changes in Apex or Messi because they just want to spend more time with their family instead of playing Counter-Strike, which I totally understand. For now, nothing is announced yet, so we don't know what they will do. At least they will also be at the Esports World Cup, and we will see if their form improves. FURIA also lost their first match at Blast Bounty, and that's against Dendele, a team they should easily win against. Just like with Vitality, I feel like a roster move is coming. There were some rumors about Molodoi maybe leaving the team. I don't know about that yet. Feels like this team will eventually fall apart of some kind because of Fallen's retirement. He announced he will retire after this year as a player. Maybe he will become a coach, I don't know, but at least as a player. And there aren't rumors yet of who will replace him. It would be very nice to see him have one last run at a major, but at this form it doesn't feel like it. What catched my eye was that Fallen himself performs better as a player, so maybe he's just trying to have more fun in the game at his last few tournaments. But maybe that is also costing them some strategy and some insights in the game as an IGL. I feel like this team is only sticking together because of Fallen, and when he leaves, I think maybe everyone else leaves, or at least the non-Brazilians will leave and find another team they will fit better in. I don't know. That's just my feeling. I do think because of Fallen they will stick around together till the last major, until his goodbye. Because otherwise it also seems like a bit of a bitchy move to just leave before he retires and just give the team more struggles. So I think the team will stick together for the end. What do you think that was a struggle for this top 5 teams, and why NAVI wasn't even performing at Blast Bounty? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you at the next video.